Joining us now, it's Ira Mehlman, Media Director with the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Ira, good to see you.
Good to be back. Thank you.
So give us a scoop here. The Biden administration doesn't seem to be accurate in its reporting of the data vis-a-vis the border, particularly in the number of encounters, the number of those crossing in, the number of those released. I mean, just all the various metrics just don't seem to line up with what the human eye sees on video that's captured there at the border.
Right. Yeah. They don't want you to believe your lying eyes. They want you to believe the propaganda that they are spilling out to the American public here. If you've been paying attention over the past month or two, they have been claiming that they have gotten the numbers of people coming across the border way down. But their own data, the data that was released last week by the Department of Homeland Security, belie that claim. They are claiming that the illegal immigration is way down. In April, there were 275,000 encounters of people attempting to enter the country illegally. In May, there were 273,000. That is hardly cause to spike the ball in the end zone and run a victory lap. And that may not even be the full story. Some of the data still has to come in. But the fact is, yes, the numbers of people coming illegally, crossing the border of the southwest border and encountered by the Border Patrol were down in May. But everything else was up. The Office of Field Operations, which deals with the people that the administration says, you can use this phone app, make an appointment, and we'll let you in. The number of parolees that they're letting in illegally. The president does not have the power to unlimited parole into the United States. The northern border, all of these numbers are way up. So yes, they want you to pay attention to the southwest border, but they don't want you to pay attention to all these other places where their numbers offset the reductions there. So it's essentially the same, and the administration has no inclination to stop it now.
I guess the natural question is, Ira, what can be done other than the other party, the Republicans in the Congress, bringing people to the Hill to testify, Mayorkas, et cetera, and just trying to dig in and force out the facts, the truth, for the people, because the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, she gets in front of the whole press corps there and says, oh, no, the border's totally secure, and we've actually made it better, and we reversed all those terrible Trump policies, et cetera. But that's not what people are experiencing. That's not what they're witnessing.
No, it's not what they're witnessing. In fact, you have Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Secretary of Homeland Security. He is not just lying to the American public. He is lying under oath to Congress when he says the border is under control. Unfortunately, there is not a whole lot of remedy other than to try to impeach some of these officials. And as we know, that is a very long and probably fruitless endeavor. So right now, it is up to the American public. We have elections coming up. People have to base their decisions on, how they think things should be run in this country. And if they think that their government is not taking the basic steps to protect the security of the nation, they need to make their decisions. Ultimately, it is up to the people. And by the way, there was a Supreme Court decision earlier this week that, or maybe it was last week, that basically said the states didn't have standing to sue. So, even the states, you had Texas and a few other states suing the administration because they were feeling the consequences of the administration's refusal to enforce our laws. The Supreme Court, for an inexplicable reason, said that they don't have legal standing to even come before the court. And so we're stuck with what we have right now.
That's kind of bizarre, isn't it? You're saying they don't have legal standing, but they're being damaged. I mean, they're having to deal with this issue financially with assets and having to spend their resources on this. So how could you not have standing when this is a direct result of failed government at the federal level?
My only conclusion is that the Supreme Court just chickened out. They didn't want to touch this case. You see that very often with the courts. If they're not comfortable with something, they will just, drop back 10 yards and punt. And I think that was the case here. But this is way too important for them to simply duck a controversial issue. And by the way, if you go down that road and say to an administration that if you don't like the laws that are on the books, you can simply not enforce them, our
Right.
whole constitutional separation of powers goes right out the window because the legislative branch essentially becomes meaningless at that point. So, some future administration might decide they don't like the environmental laws and they're not going to enforce those laws. It is damaging at so many levels, and the Supreme Court simply ducked it last week.
Yeah, that is disturbing. Now that you bring that up, I can see where if that becomes the standard, that could apply across so many other areas and disciplines that I think about just in business, how that could just tear apart the business world like that, because we rely on those laws and the enforcement thereof to carry on our economy.
Yeah, it becomes dictatorship in 4-year increments, and I'm not sure that's what our founding fathers had in mind.
Mm. So when the Biden administration says, well, these aren't illegals really crossing the border, and we've got legal ways for them to enter the country and to attain citizenship, I mean, is that totally honest? Is that the truth?
No, they're just making up, so-called legal pathways for them to enter the United States. The law is very clear about who can enter and under what circumstances, and the administration is just completely ignoring it. They have established a parole program for up to 360,000 migrants every year from a handful of countries: Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua. Now they've added Colombia. They have no legal authority to do that. The statute that established parole power said that it has to be done on a case-by-case basis and based on some compelling humanitarian or national security interest. That clearly is not the case. You can't do individual inspection of 360,000 requests that come into the country under parole. In addition to that, rather than having people cross the border between ports of entry, which looks bad on television, especially as we head into an election year, they have created a phone app that says if you make an appointment at a border entry point, we will give you a quick interview. We will allow you into the United States where you can spend the next 10 years pursuing some fraudulent claim of political asylum, knowing full well that once you are in the country, especially in the country for that long, even if your asylum claim is turned down, nobody's going to remove you at that point. So really what they're doing is just trying to move stuff around on the books. They're taking encounters off the Border Patrol's books and moving them elsewhere. But it's the same number of people coming in: 275,000 in April, 273,000 in May. That works out to more than 3 million a year.
Man, that's incredible. That's the size of the state of Mississippi. So what's the solution here, Ira? I mean, we hear, the former president, Trump, talk about building a wall. You got Ron DeSantis saying he, too, would build a wall. But that requires funding, and that means the Congress has to be on board with that. That was tried, couldn't get that through. What's the solution here?
No, the funding was there. The materials were purchased. The contracts were signed with the contractors. The Biden administration basically abandoned those on day one of this administration. And by the way, it's not, you mentioned Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Go to the Democratic side. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is saying essentially the same thing. So, I think people across the political spectrum are starting to recognize it's unsustainable. The wall is very effective. And it's the administration that is the roadblock here. They're refusing to actually, the American public has purchased the materials, they paid the contractors, and it's just sitting there rusting.
Yeah, as I recall, he reversed every single Trump immigration policy day one when after inauguration. I mean, it's one of the first things he did was sign off on those, a series of executive orders, most of which were associated with immigration policy. And he reversed every single one of those.
Right. Solely because, President Trump had done it. I guess out of spite. And we're seeing the results. The results are that we're getting unprecedented numbers of people coming across the border. just about it's not just Republican-led states like Florida and Texas that are complaining about it. Go to New York City. Eric
Yeah.
Adams, the mayor of New York, he's doing everything in his power to move people elsewhere. It is a national problem. I'm sure it's being felt in Mississippi just like it is everywhere else. Something has to give here. The administration has to recognize that they are imposing unsustainable burdens on the American public and on local jurisdictions, and the American public wants it stopped.
Even Adams recently said we can't afford this. It's costing us at a minimum $5 million a day, and I think that was a month or so ago. It's probably risen since then considerably. Ira, appreciate you coming on the program and sharing your insights. We look forward to talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Anytime. Thank you.
We're coming right back with more here in the Element Wealth studio. Please